Hey everybody, I'm Jake Corson and welcome back to Dirt Road Barbecue. We're having a fall summer day in March here in Western Pennsylvania and we're going to use it. We're out on the porch, we're going to have fun, we're going to cook some meat, we're going to eat good, and we're going to have a great day. The United States, on the other hand, we're back at war in the Middle East. Gas prices are up, diesel prices are up, we're at war in the Middle East. We're back, baby. And I know what you're thinking. I don't want my tax dollars going to these endless wars in the Middle East. Well, think of all the amazing inventions that have come from the fruits of war. I don't know what they are. I think one's the MRI or something like that. I can't remember. I barely passed high school. But inventions, creativity, it's what makes us human. We're always looking to do something better, bigger, faster, stronger. That's what it's all about. And on Dirt Road Barbecue here, it's no different. We're always I'm trying to think of something crazy to do every week. And that's why this week I dreamt it like a daydream, like I could see it, like it was real. So I'm doing it. I thought, pork belly's awesome. And we all love the white-tailed deer here in Western Pennsylvania. Why can't we put those two things together? So I thought, what if we took a pork belly and we stuffed it with a venison backstrap that we stuff with cream cheese and jalapenos, wrap it up, shove it in that pork belly, cook it, send it home to your mother with no note attached. That's what we're doing this week. Let's get into it. All right, guys, so how I envision this going is, before I do anything, the problem with the difference between pork and venison, especially a backstrap, our end temps are going to be way off what we're going to aim for. So our plan is get the pork belly ready, smoke it. I'm going to take it up to, I think, like 120, and then I'm going to stuff it with the tenderloin. I'm going to get the tenderloin in there. That way we get right in that like 120 range for the tenderloin inside the pork belly whenever and at the same time end up at about 200 on the pork belly. So we're going to do the pork belly first. The way I envision this, we're going to cut this pork belly right in the center before we put it in there, because once it cooks and comes up to temperature, it's harder to do any surgery to pork because it's going to start wanting to come apart. It's going to be hard to make incisions on it. So we're doing it while it's raw. We're going to cut this center and hollow out a little igloo, a little home for our backstrap to set inside this pork belly. That's my plan. So I'm going to cut this open, and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, guys. So we have that pork belly sliced open. We've got a nice pocket the whole way down the center of that pork belly. I'm going to go in with a little bit of binder on this. I know a lot of times on pork you guys don't see me use binder very much. But with this, I want end up with a nice crust on this. I want a nice, big, thick crust on the outside of this pork belly is what I'm going for. So I'm going to use a little mustard to get a little bit more depth on my rub on the outside of this pork belly. I've got a vision for this, and I want it to end up exactly how my vision is in my head. I already patted this dry before I started, so that's already done, in case you're wondering where that step went. So, I want a little bit of savory and a little bit of sweet on this pork belly. So, gloves off before I end up with mustard all over everything. I'm gonna go in with a little bit of Killer Hogs AP, mostly, you know, garlic, salt, pepper. Now we're going in with Killer Hogs, the barbecue rub. You guys know this is my pork shit. So, I'm gonna let this set and sweat for about 15-20 minutes. Let this rub, wick the moisture out of this pork belly. When it starts to look moist, I've got the Traeger cranked up to 250, and we'll throw it on there. And like I said, we're gonna bring this up to about 120 degrees before we stuff it with that tenderloin. So, we'll be back whenever we come out here with this tenderloin to get it ready. All right, guys. So, our pork belly is almost to the point where it's ready to accept the entry of our backstrap. So, melted a stick of, 3/4 of a stick of butter on the griddle top here. And we're just gonna go ahead and sear this. And I'll explain to you what I did here, because I didn't feel like you guys cared to watch 15 minutes of me doing this. So, we took our backstrap, our venison backstrap, and we just filleted it open. You guys have seen me do it with chunks of meat before. We just sliced her down and rolled it, sliced it thin the whole way around till we had a big sheet. And then all that's wrapped with is cream cheese and little chopped up jalapenos. I went ahead and dusted the inside before I laid the cream cheese filling down. I dusted it with Meat Church's Blanco seasoning. Killer Hogs AP would be fine too. It's just I had my AP out here and I was inside. So dusted it with that, laid our cream cheese down on it, and then rolled it up, tied butcher twine around it to hold it tight. And now we're gonna sear this outside, put a nice crust on this outside of this backstrap roll up, whatever you want to call it, before we stuff it inside of our pork belly. So we're just gonna go ahead and put a nice crust on the outside of this. High heat. Got a 3/4 of a stick of butter on here to give it a little richness and help it crust up here. Okay guys, so now here comes the tricky part. We cut our butcher twine off. We don't want that in there because we'll end up eating it. We just wanted it to hold it together so we could sear it. The sear should hold it together. So, got our pocket. It's still nice and open. Make sure we got the whole way through here. Okay, so this is going to be tricky. I don't even know if we're going to be able to do this, but we're going to try. I think this side's going to be the easiest side to go in from. So, all we can really do is go for it at this point. I'm past the point of thinking this is going to be one of the prettiest things I've ever done, but I think it'll be good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring it over here and set it back on the smoker. Before I do that though, I am going to just do a little presentation dust. Get a little bit more bark buildup on the outside of there. So, and now, I'm just gonna take this over. I'm gonna get my nice gloves all dirty. And I'm just gonna bring it over, put it right back on. At 250 still. I'm gonna take this up to 200 to 205, somewhere around in that range. We'll be back when we're ready to chow down. Okay guys, we're at the point, we pulled it. It's rested a little bit. Probably should let it rest longer, but too excited. We went up to 195. I did at 190, I put a little bit of barbecue sauce on the outside to glaze up on the top of it. And I went to 195 and I did not wrap this at all. I wanted, you know, I want this to come apart and kind of stay together. Wrapping it is probably going to make that pork belly a little bit too tender and it's going to fall apart. I wanted it to all have a little bit of grab to it. So that and how long this took, you know, it was a little bit longer than I expected. So instead of going the whole way to 200, I just went to 195 and called it. So now the exciting part. Let's cut into this. See where our tenderloin, I know there was a little bit of overhang. So this next cut, we should have some tenderloin on it. Got a nice crunch on the outside. Okay, so we do end up, now we're into it here. Let's take a look at this. See what we ended up with here. Oh yeah. We're still not into like the meat and potatoes of it here, but that's beautiful. I like how that looks. Let's just take one more big chunk out of it, get into some of the girthier parts of that venison wrap. Okay, so now we're starting to see the money. Check that out. Juicy. I mean, it's rolling out of it. And this can't be bad. I'm very excited to try this. So guys, you've seen our finished product there. You know, the thinner, you know, the outside kicked a little bit more of that cream cheese filling out. It kind of melted out and seeped out of it. Probably could, you know, put some toothpicks in the end to where that edge of that pork belly meets up, to hold it together, to kind of keep some of that stuff inside the actual pork belly. Could test a couple of different fillings, stuff like that, stuff that sticks together a little bit better. But overall, you know, the center of this still has a lot of that filling in it. That's the bite I'm about to take. But as I look at it, I haven't tasted it yet, but everything turned out kind of how I wanted it to. It was a lot more difficult to get that into that pork belly than I thought. Maybe a smaller chunk of venison or a bigger pork belly would maybe, you know, be, but we got it in there. It was just a little bit tedious to get it in there, but we're having our first thunderstorm of the year here. Beautiful. Can't imagine a better day to try this out. So just gonna caveman this and show you it one more time. That looks pretty darn good. I'm actually gonna cut that right in half so I can get right into the filling inside that tenderloin. Like I said, the center here, we ended up with some of that goodness in there. So can't be bad. Let's go in and give it a whirl. Oh yeah. Yeah, that, you know, the pork, kind of like wrapping your backstrap in bacon like a lot of people do. The fat in the pork and the savoriness of the pork kind of draws out that game taste. That's kind of what it does here. But the flavor of the venison in that pork belly and that sweet cream cheese and the heat from the jalapenos, you know, man, you know, that is something you could do for a family event and people would think, this guy knows what the f he's doing. You know, it's, I would do that again and again. Guys, try that. You could do it with beef tenderloin, You could probably even do that with just hamburger, just stuff it like a meatloaf. But that is excellent. Something I'll definitely be doing a lot of from now on. And boy, the white-tailed deer, it never disappoints and never does pork belly. Why would I think that this wasn't going to work? I didn't have many doubts, but now we know. This one, knocked out of the park. Awesome. Do it at home. Thanks again. And that will do.